My mother-in-law demanded a paternity test for my child. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. Denise slid a paternity test form across my kitchen table like a verdict. My baby was 5 weeks old, still doing that newborn thing where her whole face scrunched up before a cry, and my shirt smelled like sour milk no matter how many times I changed it. Ethan stood behind his mother, hands jammed in his pockets, eyes flicking from the paper to me like he was watching a car crash he couldn't stop. "It's just to clear the air," Denise said, voice sugar smooth. "If you have nothing to hide, Rose, you'll sign." My throat went tight. I looked at the form, a logo for a lab I didn't recognize, boxes for mother, alleged father, and a third option that made my skin prickle: other relative. Next to it, Denise had already written Ethan's full name in neat cursive. She'd even circled expedited results. "What air?" I asked. "We live in air. We breathe it." Denise didn't blink. "The baby doesn't look like Ethan. And the dates, you know. People talk." Ethan finally spoke, barely above a whisper. "Rose, can we just do it? My mom won't drop it." That was the stake right there. My marriage, my sanity, and the tiny piece I'd carved out between feedings and stitches and the fog of postpartum hormones. If I refused, I'd be suspicious. If I agreed, Denise got to brand me as guilty until proven innocent. I stared at my daughter's soft fist gripping my finger and felt something in me go cold and clear. "Okay," I said. "We'll do a paternity test." Denise's lips twitched, like she'd won. "But only under one condition," I added, sliding the form back untouched. Ethan's eyes widened. Denise leaned forward. "And what condition is that?" I reached for my phone and opened a folder I'd been building since the first joke about timelines. Screenshots, dates, even a voice memo I'd recorded in my car after her last ambush, because something told me this wasn't going to stay inside our walls. If Denise wanted a spectacle, I could give her a controlled one. "You'll sign my condition in writing, in front of witnesses," I said. Denise's smile didn't reach her eyes as she asked who the witnesses were. Before the baby, Denise's control came wrapped in lace. When Ethan first brought me to his parents' place, big suburban house, perfect lawn lines like someone combed the grass, Denise hugged me and said, "You're pretty," in the same tone people use for a rescue dog. Then she looked me up and down and added, "Ethan's always had a generous heart." On the drive home, I laughed it off. Ethan squeezed my hand. "She's old school. She'll warm up." She didn't warm up. She audited. At our engagement dinner, she asked what my dad did for a living and whether my mom ever finished college. When I said I worked in hospital billing, she nodded like I'd confessed to petty theft. "Well," she said, "at least it's steady." At our wedding, she insisted on inviting people Ethan hadn't spoken to in years because image matters. She also insisted on a mother-son dance song she picked, then cried loudly when Ethan suggested a compromise. "I guess I'm not important anymore," she sobbed, and the whole room looked at Ethan like he'd kicked a puppy. After that, I learned the pattern. Denise didn't scream. She implied. She sighed. She planted little flags in Ethan's brain. Rose is sensitive. Rose doesn't get our family. Rose takes things the wrong way. The sharpest line came when I got pregnant. We hadn't even told anyone yet, but Denise somehow knew. She cornered me at a family barbecue, away from the noise, and slid a hand onto my stomach like she already owned it. "Just remember," she murmured, "a baby changes everything. Men get scared. You'll need to keep Ethan happy." I stepped back. "I'm not worried about Ethan." She tilted her head. "You should be." That night, I told Ethan. He frowned, then shrugged like he could physically shake her words off. "Mom says weird stuff. Don't let her in your head." But it was already in there, buzzing. Now, with that test form on my table, I replayed every moment she'd try to make me feel small, unstable, replaceable. And I realized she wasn't starting a fight because she doubted me. She was starting one because she needed me to doubt myself. And the moment I decided not to, my phone lit up with a message from her. The message was a screenshot. It showed a group chat I wasn't in, Denise, Ethan's cousin, and a contact saved as banker. Under the screenshot, Denise typed, "Need the paternity test ASAP. Can't finalize anything without it." My pulse thudded. Who is this banker contact? I asked Ethan when he came out of the bathroom. He squinted at my phone. "I don't know. Maybe mom's friend?" Why is she talking about finalizing anything? Ethan's shoulders rose and fell. She's dramatic. It's probably just her way of feeling secure. Feeling secure about my baby's DNA. After that, the jokes got louder. At 2 weeks postpartum, Denise held my daughter and said, "Such dark hair." Ethan was blonde as a baby. She laughed, but her eyes stayed sharp. Then she turned to Ethan. "Do you remember that summer Rose went to that conference?" "It was for work," I said. Denise waved a hand. "Oh, honey, I'm not accusing you. I'm just saying, people don't always know what they're signing up for." At 3 weeks, she asked for my due date again. I told her. She did the math in her head. "Interesting," she said. At 4 weeks, she accidentally called my baby by Ethan's ex-girlfriend's name, then apologized like it was my fault for reacting. "Sleep deprivation makes me silly," she said, though she slept 8 hours and I was living in 60-minute chunks. The worst part was Ethan's reflex to smooth it over. "She means well," he told me after she left. "She's just protective." Protective of what? I snapped. "Your reputation?" "Her reputation? Because it's not me she's protecting." He looked wounded. "So what? You want me to cut her off?" I wanted him to see the trap. If he defended me too hard, Denise would say I was isolating him. If he didn't defend me, I'd be the one bleeding. So I started tracking. On July 18th, 9:12 p.m., Denise texted Ethan, "Bring baby to my house Saturday." "Alone is fine." On July 19th, 7:03 a.m., she texted me, "Don't forget the baby's brush, darling." On July 20th, she showed up with a sterile-looking envelope and said it was for keepsakes. I didn't open it in front of her. I waited until she left, then peeled the flap. Inside was a prepaid DNA kit with my baby's name already printed on it. Denise didn't even wait for Saturday. The following Sunday, she hosted what she called a welcome dinner for the baby. It was supposed to be casseroles and polite cooing. Instead, it turned into a tribunal. Her dining room was staged like a magazine spread. Perfect napkins, perfect candles, framed photos of Ethan at every age. Denise wore pearls like armor. Aunt Jo sat at the far end, watching Denise the way you watch a storm line. Halfway through dinner, Denise clinked her fork against her glass. "I'm so grateful you all came," she said, smiling at the relatives I barely knew. "Family is everything, which is why we have to protect it." My stomach sank. Ethan's knee bumped mine under the table, nervous. Denise reached into a folder, an actual folder, and pulled out papers like she was presenting evidence. "I've arranged a simple test," she announced. "A paternity test. Just routine. We can put this to rest." The room went silent in that ugly way where even the air feels judgmental. I felt heat climb my neck. "Denise, this is not the time." "It's exactly the time," she said. "The baby deserves the truth. Ethan deserves the truth." Then she looked at me. Pity sharpened into a blade. "If you're innocent, you'll be relieved." Ethan's face went pale. "Mom, stop." Denise held up a hand. "Don't be naive, sweetheart. Women do things. Men get trapped." I heard my own voice before I felt it. "You're doing this in front of everyone because you want me humiliated." Denise's eyebrows lifted. "I want clarity." Aunt Jo finally spoke, calm as a nurse in an ER. "Denise, you're making a spectacle." Denise ignored her and pushed the folder toward Ethan. "Sign. Tonight." Ethan stared at the papers. His hand hovered, shaking. That was the moment I understood. If Ethan signed in that room, I would be defending myself forever. If he didn't, Denise would tell everyone I'd manipulated him. I set my fork down carefully, like I was placing a weapon on the table. "Fine," I said. "We'll test my way." Denise's smile widened. "Oh, and what is your way?" I pulled the prepaid kit from my purse and watched her expression crack. On the drive home, the car felt too small for all the anger. Ethan kept both hands on the wheel like he was afraid he'd swerve if he moved wrong. "She shouldn't have done that," he said. "But, Rose, you didn't have to pull out the kit like that." I stared out the window at passing porch lights. "You're worried about my tone?" "That's not," he swallowed. "I'm worried about this tearing us apart." "It's already tearing," I said. "Your mother is ripping at it with both hands, and you keep asking me to be gentle." When we got home, I fed the baby in the dim kitchen light while Ethan paced. His phone kept lighting up. "Denise, he needs to protect himself." "Denise, if she refuses, you know what that means." Ethan showed me the screen like he expected me to fix it. "She's spiraling." "No," I said, voice flat. "She's executing." For a moment, I considered packing a bag. Not dramatically, just quietly, because I couldn't handle another meal where my integrity was treated like a debate topic. But then I pictured Denise telling everyone I ran, and my stomach turned. Aunt Jo called that night. Ethan put it on speaker, probably hoping she'd calm me down. Instead, she said, "Rose, I'm sorry. Denise always goes for the throat when she's scared." Scared of what? I asked. There was a pause, the kind that means someone is choosing words. "This isn't really about the baby," Aunt Jo said. "It's about control. And money." Ethan stopped pacing. "What money?" Aunt Jo sighed. "Your father's trust. The one Denise pretends doesn't exist unless it benefits her." Ethan's jaw tightened. "My dad didn't have a trust." "Oh, honey," Aunt Jo said softly. "He did. And Denise has been managing it like it's her personal kingdom." My chest went cold. Denise hadn't just accused me in public. She'd brought paperwork, and she'd used the word finalize with a banker. Aunt Jo continued, quieter now. "If she's pushing this hard for a paternity test, she's trying to prove something. Or hide something." After we hung up, Ethan looked at me like he didn't recognize his own life. "I think my mom is lying to me," he whispered. Then his phone buzzed again, and his face drained of color. Ethan handed me the phone without a word. It was an email forwarded from Denise to Ethan by accident. The subject line read, "Beneficiary verification, urgent." A law firm's signature block sat underneath like a threat. "Per our call, we cannot proceed without genetic confirmation. Please provide documentation by August 2nd. 2 weeks away. I looked up at Ethan. "This is why she's doing it." He swallowed. "My dad's lawyer hasn't emailed me in years." "Because she's been the gatekeeper," I said. Denise's next move came the next morning. She texted me directly. "Denise, hi darling. I booked you an appointment at Jean Sure for Friday 10:30. I'll drive." Booked me. Like I was a haircut. I screenshotted it, then called the lab to confirm. I kept my voice calm. "I'm trying to verify an appointment for Rose H," I said. The receptionist typed, "Yes, Friday. Requested by Denise H." My spine went rigid. "Can she schedule that without me?" "For a chain of custody paternity test," she said carefully, "the mother and alleged father must appear with ID and sign consent. We don't accept third-party arrangements." I wrote it down word for word. I logged the time. July 23rd, 9:41 a.m. Then I thanked her and hung up. Next I called my OB clinic, throat tight. "Has anyone requested my prenatal records?" The nurse didn't hesitate. "We had a caller last week claiming to be you. They knew your due date, but they failed the security question, so we denied it." My stomach flipped. "Did they give a name?" She said, "I'm his mother." "This is urgent," the nurse whispered, like she was embarrassed for me. When I hung up, my hands were shaking. Denise wasn't concerned. She was collecting ammunition, and she was sloppy enough to leave a paper trail. I walked into the living room where Ethan sat with the baby asleep on his chest. "Your mom is trying to build a case," I said, "and she's leaving receipts." Ethan stared at me, eyes wet. What if she already has a sample from the baby? That question kept me awake. At 2:18 a.m., while Ethan snored on the couch with the baby monitor beside him, I sat at the kitchen table and made a list. What she said, what she did, what I can prove. First, the texts. I scrolled back and screenshotted every message Denise sent about clarity, protecting Ethan, and finalizing. I saved them into a folder labeled Denise, "Do not delete," and emailed copies to myself. Second, the paperwork. The form she slid across my table had that weird box, "Other Relative." I zoomed in and saw faint indentations like she'd pressed hard when she filled it out. Under that section, there was a half-written name she'd tried to erase. Not Ethan. I called Jean Sure again the next morning and asked a different question. "If someone wanted to test a baby against a relative," I said, keeping my voice light, "is that still called a paternity test?" The receptionist didn't miss a beat. "That would be a kinship test. Different pricing, different accuracy. People misunderstand." "Or misuse," I murmured. "If you want results that hold up anywhere, court, estate, whatever, you do chain of custody with the alleged father present," she said. "Otherwise, it's not legally meaningful." That afternoon, Aunt Jo came by with coffee and a look that said she'd already chosen a side. "Denise always controls the narrative first," she said, watching me rock the baby. "If she's pushing a kinship test, she's avoiding something." "Like what?" I asked. Aunt Jo's eyes flicked to the hallway. Your father-in-law's family took bloodlines seriously. The room felt suddenly colder. Are you saying Ethan isn't? I'm saying Denise doesn't pick fights she can't benefit from, Aunt Jo cut in. And she benefits from you looking guilty. That evening, I waited until Ethan showered. I opened the folder Denise had left at dinner, still on our counter, and flipped to the back. A stapled page slipped out, addressed to the law firm. It wasn't about the baby at all. It was about Ethan. The stapled page was a memo on Attorney Kim's letterhead. I recognized the name immediately because it was stamped in the corner. Kim and Associates, Estate Law. Denise had always talked about our family attorney, like he was a priest she could confess to and command at the same time. The memo was dated June 30th. It wasn't long, which somehow made it scarier. Mrs. H, as discussed, the trustee requires genetic verification of lineal descent prior to releasing the next distribution. If verification is not provided by August 2nd, the distribution will be suspended pending investigation. Lineal descent. Genetic verification. Investigation. My hands went numb. I reread it twice, then a third time slower, like reading it carefully could make it less real. This wasn't Denise being petty. This was Denise being cornered. I found a second page behind it, Denise's handwritten notes. She'd circled lineal descent and written, use baby. Don't involve Ethan. Avoid questions. Avoid questions about what? About who Ethan's father really was. My mind started connecting dots I didn't want connected. Denise insisting the baby didn't look like Ethan. Denise pushing other relative. Denise trying to get my prenatal records like she needed dates on paper, not just gossip. If a trustee was demanding DNA proof, Denise couldn't just talk her way out of it. She needed a test she could control. A test she could run through a relative, so Ethan didn't have to submit his own sample. And if the results didn't fit the story she wanted, she could point at me and say, see, Rose cheated. I walked into the bathroom and locked the door just to breathe. My reflection looked like a stranger, dark circles, hair in a knot, milk stain on my collar. What would you do if someone tried to use your newborn as a pawn in a money fight you didn't start? When Ethan got out of the shower, I showed him the memo. He read it once, then again, his mouth open. This can't be right. Ask yourself why she's desperate, I said. Ethan's voice broke. My dad's been dead 6 years. Why would they need DNA now? Because someone had asked a question they'd been avoiding for decades. Ethan's phone buzzed, and Denise's name flashed across the screen, calling, not texting. Ethan didn't answer the call. He let it ring out, staring at the screen like it might bite him. Then he looked at me, and for the first time since the baby was born, his face wasn't pleading, it was angry. She's been hiding this, he said. Yes, I replied. And she's trying to make me the villain so nobody asks why. We sat at our tiny kitchen table with the memo between us. The baby slept in her bassinet, making those tiny squeaky breaths. The house hummed with the fridge and my heartbeat. I felt protective rage burn under my ribs. I'll do the test, I said. But not her test. Ethan exhaled. Okay, tell me what you want. That question was the pivot. Denise expected me to either crumble or explode. She didn't expect me to negotiate. My condition, I said, is that everything happens on the record. I opened my notes app and started listing it out. Chain of custody only, accredited lab. Ethan and I show ID. Samples witnessed, sealed. No relatives. No other relative option. Paternity means Ethan and the baby, period. Results released to all at once, through Attorney Kim. No private forwarding. Denise signs a written retraction and apology to the family group chat and anyone at that dinner. Denise provides the trust documents she's using as justification before we schedule anything. If she crosses boundaries again, she loses access to our home and the baby for 6 months. Ethan stared at the list. That's a lot. So was accusing me in public, I said. If your mom wants DNA, she's going to get accountability attached. Ethan's jaw flexed. She'll never agree. Then she doesn't get a test, I said. And she doesn't get to keep lying about me. A thought hit me. What if the trustee's DNA demand would expose something about Ethan himself? I slid the memo back into the folder and stood. Call her. Put it on speaker. Ethan hesitated, then pressed the button. Denise answered on the first ring, voice bright. Sweetheart, are you alone right now? Or is Rose listening too? Ethan glanced at me, then at the phone. No, he said. You're on speaker. There was a beat of silence, Then Denise's tone cooled. Rose is there. Yes, Ethan said. And we read your memo. My breath caught. Denise had always acted like the trust was a rumor. Now it was a lever. I don't know what you think you read, Denise said. But this is private family business. You made it public, I cut in. At dinner. Denise exhaled dramatically. Rose, if you loved Ethan, you do the simple test and stop turning this into a fight. We will do a test, I said. Chain of custody. Accredited lab. Ethan present. Results go to everyone at once through attorney Kim. Denise laughed, sharp. An attorney? Why would you need that unless you're hiding something? Ethan's voice tightened. Mom, Rose has conditions. Conditions? Denise repeated, like the word itself offended her. Ethan, listen to me. This is how women control men. They make demands and call it boundaries. I watched Ethan's face shift, old instincts waking up. The little boy who tried to keep his mother calm. Denise's voice softened. Sweetheart, I can make this easier. I'll pay for the test. We can get it done fast and move on. Then she hardened again. But if Rose refuses, the trustee will assume the worst. And when money is involved, people get protective. Things get formal. Ethan blinked. Formal like what? I'm not threatening, Denise said quickly. I'm just saying, courts don't like uncertainty. A mother who hides paternity looks unstable. My hands went icy. She was planting custody fear. What you just said, I told her, voice steady now, is exactly why nothing happens off the record. Denise clicked her tongue. Fine. Send your little list. I'll see. After the call, Ethan sat down hard. She just implied you'd lose the baby, he whispered. And you heard it, I said. That matters. That night, while Ethan slept, I opened Denise's folder again and noticed a sticky note on the memo. In her handwriting, it read, if questioned, deny paternity issue with Ethan. The next morning, I forwarded Denise my conditions in an email. Not a text she could deny later. An email with bullet points, timestamped July 24th, 8:06 a.m. Copied to Ethan and Aunt Jo. At the end I wrote, if you agree, reply I accept so there is no confusion. Denise replied 3 hours later with 2 words. I accept. No greeting. No apology. Just compliance, like she planned to fight it later. Ethan stared at the screen. That was too easy. Because she thinks she can still steer it, I said. I called Attorney Kim's office and asked for guidance on chain of custody paternity testing tied to an estate issue. Attorney Kim met us in a small conference room and read the memo without changing her expression. I'm going to be blunt, she said. People use DNA like a weapon when money is involved. The only protection is procedure. She slid a 1-page checklist across the table. ID required, witness collection, sealed samples, results delivered directly to counsel. What about a relative test? I asked. Attorney Kim's mouth tightened. Kinship tests aren't paternity. If someone is pushing other relative, they're usually trying to avoid involving the alleged father or manufacture doubt. Ethan's face drained. My mom tried to book that. Attorney Kim nodded once. Then you keep control. You schedule. You attend. You document. We booked the appointment for July 29th, 11 a.m. at a lab she recommended. The confirmation email went to all of us, including Denise, so nobody could claim a different date. I printed everything. The July 23rd call log notes, Denise's texts, the memo, even the sticky note. I hole-punched it all into a binder like I was building a case file, because if Denise tried to twist this, I wanted ink on paper. Then I set the trap. Attorney Kim scheduled a results meeting for August 1st, and she allowed one neutral witness. Aunt Jo. That night Denise texted Ethan. Tell Rose I need to speak to her alone before Friday. My stomach dropped because I knew what alone meant to Denise, and she didn't wait for permission to show up at my door. Denise stood on my porch like she lived there. She didn't bring food. She didn't ask about the baby. She walked in, eyes scanning my living room, and said, Ethan, can you give us a minute? Ethan hesitated, then surprised me. No, he said. Say it with both of us here. Denise's nostrils flared. Rose, I'm trying to save my son from embarrassment. I'm trying to save my child from your obsession, I replied. She leaned closer, voice low. If this goes the way I think it will, you'll want me on your side. My stomach clenched. I tapped my phone in my pocket, starting the recorder. You're still assuming I cheated, I said. Denise smiled, thin. I'm assuming I've seen enough women lie to recognize the pattern. Ethan's eyes flashed. Stop. Denise snapped at him. I'm the only person protecting you. I held my ground. The test is Friday. Chain of custody. Results through attorney Kim. That's the deal. For a split second, Denise looked scared. You don't need a lawyer, she whispered, and it sounded like a plea. Friday came like a storm. At 11 a.m., the technician checked our IDs and had Ethan sign consent forms. She swabbed Ethan, then our baby, and sealed both into a tamper-evident bag with a barcode. If anyone opens this, it shows, she said. Denise watched from the waiting area, hands clasped like she was praying. On August 1st, we sat in Attorney Kim's office. Me, Ethan, Denise, and Aunt Jo. Attorney Kim opened the envelope and read, Probability of paternity, 999%. Ethan let out a shaky laugh. I felt my whole body unclench. Denise didn't move. Aunt Jo broke the silence. So you were wrong. Denise's voice came out sharp. No. The lab. Maybe they. Attorney Kim lifted a hand. Denise, the paternity issue is answered. But there's another problem. She turned her monitor toward us. An email thread filled the screen. Denise asking the trustee for alternative verification because testing Ethan directly may raise complications. Ethan blinked. Complications? Attorney Kim's tone stayed even. The trustee is questioning whether Ethan is his late father's biological son. The room went dead quiet, and Denise finally made a sound like she'd been hit. Denise's face went gray, then red, like her body couldn't choose a reaction. That's impossible, she snapped, but her voice shook. Ethan's dad is Ethan's dad. Ethan stared at the screen. Mom, he said slowly. Why would the trustee even question this? Denise's mouth opened, then closed. She looked at Attorney Kim like she expected rescue. Attorney Kim stayed calm. The trust is moving to a new administrator. They're reviewing files. They found gaps. What gaps? Ethan asked. Attorney Kim tapped the memo. Ethan is listed as a verified biological heir, but there's no genetic verification on record. The trustee requested it. Denise asked for alternative verification instead of testing you directly. Denise's nails dug into her palm. Because we didn't need that back then. Aunt Jo's voice cut in, soft but firm. You avoided it. Denise whipped toward her. You don't know anything. Aunt Jo didn't blink. I know you disappeared for months in 1991 and came back pregnant. I know your late father chose forgiveness over questions. Ethan's breath hitched. Is that true? Denise's eyes darted to me, then away. This is Rose's fault, she said suddenly louder. If she hadn't forced lawyers and records. Stop. Ethan said, louder than I'd ever heard him. The sound startled even him. You accused my wife to cover your own lie. Denise stood so fast her chair squealed. I was protecting you. From what? He demanded. From the truth about you? Attorney Kim cleared her throat. Here's what happens next. The trustee will likely suspend the August 2nd distribution until verification is completed. If fraud is suspected, there may be an audit. Denise's knees seemed to wobble. They can't. They can, Attorney Kim said. And they will. When we finally left, Denise was still in the conference room, head in her hands, whispering that none of this was fair. In the parking lot, Ethan leaned against the car and stared at the sky like he was waiting for it to explain his childhood. I don't even know who I am, he said. My phone buzzed with Denise's posts, and the family chat exploded. By midnight, the family chat looked like a burning building. Denise had posted first. I asked for a test because I love my son and grandchild. Then she posted again. Rose refused initially. Then, Ethan's being manipulated. Each message came with a screenshot she cropped just enough to make herself look calm and me look suspicious. I didn't reply in the chat. Instead, I replied with documents. At 12:22 a.m., I emailed the group. The July 24th email where Denise wrote, I accept, the lab appointment confirmation, and the paternity result page with the 999% line highlighted. I kept the subject simple. Facts. Then Ethan did something I'd been waiting years to see. He typed, my mother accused my wife publicly. The baby is mine. If you keep spreading lies, we are done. He hit send and turned off his phone. The next week wasn't dramatic. It was heavy. Ethan scheduled therapy for himself and asked me to join once a month. We met attorney Kim again and drafted boundaries in plain language. No accusations, no DNA discussions, no surprise visits, and all contact through Ethan for now. If Denise violated it, we would go no contact for 6 months. If she showed up anyway, we would document and call non-emergency police. Ethan also agreed to cooperate directly with the trustee's verification process, his choice, not Denise's. He told me, if there's truth, I want it without her narrating it. Postpartum hormones don't care that you're right. They just want you to cry in the shower and doubt everything. 2 Fridays later, Denise emailed attorney Kim an apology. It was 3 paragraphs of passive voice. Mistakes were made. Feelings were hurt. Not one, I accused you. Attorney Kim forwarded it to us with 1 line. This does not meet your written condition. Ethan stared at the screen, then wrote back a single sentence. Mom, you don't get access without accountability. For a month, the house got quieter. The baby started smiling on purpose. Ethan started sleeping through the night. I started believing peace could be real. Then a small padded envelope arrived with Denise's return address and my name spelled wrong. I didn't open the envelope right away. For a full hour, it sat on my counter while I bounced my daughter on my hip and watched sunlight crawl across the floor. A month earlier, a piece of paper had nearly rewritten my life. Now another piece of paper was waiting to try again. Ethan came home from therapy and saw it. His face tightened. From her. I nodded. We made tea, because apparently we're the kind of couple who processes trauma with chamomile now. Then we sat at the table, same table where Denise slid that first form at me, and I realized how much had changed. Back then I'd felt like I had to prove my worth. Now I felt like I had to protect our peace. Here's the thing nobody tells you. Agreeing to a paternity test isn't always about DNA. Sometimes it's about surrender. Denise didn't want truth. She wanted a ritual where I bowed, where Ethan watched me accept shame as the price of being in his family. My condition wasn't revenge. It was a boundary with teeth. Chain of custody, so she couldn't fake a story. Witnesses, so she couldn't rewrite history. And written accountability, so she couldn't pretend it never happened. The paperwork didn't just prove Ethan was the father. It proved Denise was willing to lie when scared. If you're ever in this situation, here's my practical advice. Don't argue in circles. Document instead. Don't do private tests arranged by the accuser. Insist on chain of custody and shared results. Tie consequences to behavior, not promises. And if your partner can't defend you, the problem isn't the test. We haven't seen Denise in person since the results meeting. She sends occasional emails through attorney Kim, each one a little less arrogant and a little more desperate. For now, our rule is simple: accountability first, access second.